Hi, I'm Vanessa Wishstar, and I'm going to talk about this is our work. I have my mom in the background, so you might hear from her. Um, I have a cold right now, so I am hopefully not going to hack on the podcast. But this is something that I'm just super passionate about, and I'm trying to think of what I think the title and label is going to come to me afterward, or towards the end. Is that so? I got a really great hearing of epiphany for a client that I just read the other day or whatever. And they were basically saying about, so this person basically, we in our session we had this conversation about this doll, and it was a very random thing. And I get this a lot with clients, and I really love when this comes through, because even if it stupefies me, I I'm really good at I pride myself in not having an ego, which is a very oxymoron thing to say, but I really do, because being psychic, you cannot have any type of ego whatsoever in a session. So one of these, I don't want to call it a sign, but something that just came up that was super, super random was this doll. And we were talking in the context of children and birth and loss and all those, everything that revolves around that. And I kept on seeing this doll. And I remember that this doll, I was like, I don't know if this is a Dolly Parton reference. I don't know if, because I kept on feeling like midwifery and stuff like that. And I'm like, and I was asking my client, really, when you're getting this information, really stretch it. Don't try to figure it out right now. Just allow it to come in its own way. And I also didn't feel like this is a one-time reference. I feel like this is a multi-layered reference. So this is how it kind of would play out, is that, maybe this midwife would, I kept on seeing an actual doll at the midwifery place, at the center, or whatever this woman's place is. And then it could be that they maybe live on Doll Street, or their house, whether you know that this or not, that their house is very doll-like. There could be where she does doll therapy. Whatever it is, this is how it was showing up. So what I get psychically is that I get doll, doll. So in that, I have to, because of my, honestly, years of experience, I know how to not dismantle this, but thread this tailored to my client, so it will eventually make sense, because of their energy field. So like I said, it's multi-layered. We never take anything literally. Everything's metaphorically. It's all an example. It's all a showing, all signs, whatever you want to do it. You never take a sign and do it literally, but rather metaphorically. So that's the deal. So then my client messages me a couple days later, and she's just like, and I'm just going to read this. And she's like, so remember when you were saying doll? I was like, what in the world are you talking about? Okay, maybe they're talking about doula? Well, there's a midwife where I did my prenatal yoga and where I'm doing my prenatal training. And we found a doll today, shoved in the mats randomly at the end of class. It wasn't until I was almost home that I remember what you said. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So this is exactly, I can't tell you how many, I call them validations. And it's not validations for me. I mean, great. I love to hear them because it's validating our session, not my ego or stuff like that. But it really is validating our session, because then I know, and I get extremely happy about this, because then I know that you, my client, are getting it, meaning you're connecting it. You don't need me. I'm just literally the messenger. You're the one being able to use the resource, me being one of your resources, of being able to connect those dots and have it show up in the physical, so it no longer becomes a state of curiosity or like, oh my gosh, isn't this amazing? You're now going to be transferring this information and using it. So this is the part of where, this is where, to me, where I say the real work begins. The work is that whenever you go to a psychic, you are basically taking notes. You're being super open in the sense of that you're not judging anything. All the information that's coming through, you're not deciphering then and there of whether it's right or wrong. You are not deciphering if it even aligns with you. Who cares? That's why I always say record it, or make sure the intuitive or psychic records it. Just really, you are super, super open in letting your highest self and your divine connection reach you in the physical point. Okay. So when we have these experiences, especially obviously after you have a session with your psychic or whatever, you're going to have, this is how I always describe it in a session with me, at least, we're raising your consciousness. So we're raising the vibration, me too, not just you, but we're in a state of higher, very high frequency of consciousness. And your spirit team is basically joining us in that thing. And in a private session, I describe this. Anyway, so afterward, you kind of like are on a high, and you're coming down, meaning you're coming more grounded into the body. That it's really good. You want that, you're here on planet Earth, so you're needed in the body. And same with me. And so we're then afterward, but then what happens is that all these things that we're talking about get grounded too. So meaning they could meet you in the physical sphere. And in this physical sphere is where we think magic happens, because what happens is that we see it. So then it must be real, so it shows up. And so a lot of times the only problem with this is that we get caught in the high. We get caught in the jolting of epiphany. We're just drugged on epiphanific energy, and we stay there because it feels good. It feeds us. It's kind of like a sugar high or a shopping high, either one. And so we kind of we don't do anything with it. So let's say it's a shopping high. That's kind of like a very easy way. Like people are like, oh man, maybe it's something pumped in TJ Maxx Air or whatever it is. But really what's happening is that where we kind of forget is that we don't use it. So then those beautiful clothes, we want to keep them beautiful. We put them in the back of the closet. We keep them for a special occasion. We don't even barely want to wash them because, oh no, they're going to fade and they might shrink and da, 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 da. And this is the same thing of psychic, any type of epiphany. We tend to hoard it. We tend to keep it to ourselves. We don't know where to share it, which isn't necessarily true, but it's our vulnerability that we're not wanting to explore, because it is very vulnerable. But you have to be vulnerable in order to receive that epiphany. That's what going to a psychic is. It's not a vulnerability in that you're surrendering your will and you're at the mercy of listening to someone else. You're not listening to anybody else except you. You're doing it without judgment. You're connecting without any opinion. And we're not used to doing that in our daily lives. So that's why it's weird, uncomfortable. And then you're like, who in the world am I going to share this? Nobody's going to believe me. Again, it's done without opinion. It's, wow, this is an amazing thing. So if you don't have a friend or somebody that you trust or a companion or anybody that, meaning you could share this in a vulnerable way without being scrutinized, which is super real for most people, that's just a reality. I usually say You could come on my Wishstar Collective page on Facebook. That's a very safe space. I vet everybody who's in there, so it is, I make sure energetically, that's safe. That's a safe space. The other main thing that I really highly suggest is you write it down. You don't have to send it. You don't have to, you could just save it in your files. It's really important to write down your experience. And this is why. It's the same reasoning of you're transcending it out of an epiphany into a reality. And what happens is when you do that, you propel yourself into engagement of a miracle. So miracles are no longer, oh my gosh, isn't this amazing? It's, of course, of course, of course. Everything is showing up. So, when people are like, oh, I'm blessed. I actually hated saying that. I don't like saying that because it makes me, I feel like it's segregating. And it's also dismissive of the people who, you or, others who are going through pain and suffering. It's kind of like, it's like saying I'm lucky. Am I lucky I'm alive? I don't know. Am I lucky I'm dead? I don't know. I'm grateful I am wherever it is. So my blessing is everything. My blessing is a landslide. My blessing is a car accident. My blessing is getting married. My blessing is having children. My blessing is not being able to have children for 11 years and then having children. Or not, whatever. My blessing is anything that's showing up. So the point is that we want to use this, whether we call it a blessing or not, into an activation, a miracle activation mode. Why is this important? Because we are here on earth in body to connect and communicate beyond body. And we need that divine connection, usually with a loved one. So when a loved one crosses over it, I mean like someone who's like really close to you, whether it's a parent, whether it's your beloved, meaning your partner, whether it's a child, whatever it is so vital to communicate. And most people think, well, how am I supposed to communicate when I can't hear anything? And I think, I don't hear anything either. And I'm psychic. So you do not have to do my job. You're not supposed to be doing my job unless that's what's required. I didn't even want to do my job. So communication isn't about being psychic. Communication is the job of what's being required with the individual that you are in relationship with. This individual might not even be born yet, but it is so vital to be in communication with them because you are awakening the actual miracle, the DNA of the miracle itself. This is what's coming through. This is what's aligning you with your holiness and your highest self. So back to our story. So you all of a sudden get information from a psychic, from whoever. It might just be from your own epiphany that happens while you're driving, or whatever it is, from a dream. Those are always really good. That's your own little psychic conversation with your highest self. Again, don't take anything literally. And that's how I always consider psychic phenomena happening, is it's very dreamlike. That's how you communicate. So how do you know about your dream? Well, you pay attention to the signs. No, nobody in your dream is telling you what to do. That's how psychic information comes through. It's not like I have somebody in my ear being like, Vanessa, say this. Like when people say, oh, well, tell so-and-so. I'm like, well, you just did. You don't need me to say, to communicate. I'm not on the phone with them literally. So that information that you're getting is like a dream-like conversation. It comes, I always call it the thought before the thinking. That is the information that's coming through. So it might come through in a dream. It might come through while you're driving. It might come through a psychic. However it comes through, the point is not to be just gaga about it and all lovey-dovey that you just got quote blessed, fairy sprinkled with magic pixie dust. But now is the time, this is where the real work plays out, is that you have to use it. Now, how do you use it? You summon more of it. And how do you summon more of it? You ask. You use everything. You can start using everything as an oracle. So just like how you would use your tarot deck or just oracle cards, you basically use, sometimes I usually say a yes and no. Those are kind of fun to do and be playful with. But in this instance, and this is kind of where I just want to focus today, is that it's usually going to be a loved one. So whether you've met them before or not, whether it's a preconception being, or whether it's your parent that crossed over, or whether it's your beloved, your wife or husband or fiance or somebody you dated, whatever it is, somebody who you feel, or best friend, somebody you feel really connected to. And I mean, I call them beloveds that show up in a whole bunch of different ways, or even child, you're going to practice communicating with them by letting them use an oracle divination to communicate with you. So a lot of people, as soon as they say, let's say in this instance, this client sees a doll and they're like, oh my gosh, this is what the psychic said, a doll. Now, what does this mean? And we're not going to go into, it's twofold. So the doll reference, you're going to break that apart into all the situations, meaning all the energies contained about a doll. That doll in this situation for the client would be I would guess or intuit, I would say intuit, I don't guess, but I would intuit that this doll is representative of a baby, of something small, of something childlike, So that, and now it being stuffed between mats, you go and say, okay, well, that's probably, to me, it's not born yet. It's not out in the open. It's not visible. You found it. And it also might be that there's maybe a stuckness in the body, that the baby might be stuck in a fallopian tube, or what, meaning the beginning of that creation. So stuff like that. So you take everything as if you were interpreting a dream. So you never take a dream literally. You take it, but you also don't necessarily go into, Google searching or books and saying, oh, what does this mean? Because what this means could be different for every single person. There's no, that's why I'm saying for my client. Now, a doll to somebody else, if it was a totally different context, a doll might be, oh, my mom always collected dolls. Or like, for instance, like I just had a dream of a doll and it was possessed. And I had this like a very intense possession that I became possessed, and I was levitating above this bed, and it was just very insane. And I thought I was literally possessed. And then I realized a couple days later that it was actually my grandmother and she was coming through, blah, blah, blah. It's a long story. So a doll can mean so many different things. You have to find out what your sign is and dismantle it for yourself. So you're unlayering it, and relating it. It's like connecting the web of dots, of like understanding what that means for you. So now once you go and figure out, the interpretation. So it's not a dream interpretation, it's a mystical interpretation, of this sign, of what that is. You also are now, the other big chunk of this is you're going to activate it and use it. So how I do that is, the number one way to activate something is validate its existence. We all want to be validated. Us just showing up, signs showing up. So your spirit team is helping connect you with this. They are not sending you messages in the sense of do this or don't do this. That is a total misnomer. Please don't ever think that. I always say when you get a reading, that's why you take it. That's why you don't judge anything in the reading, especially during the reading, because we don't know, including the psychic. We have to filter the information. There's no such thing as you should do this or avoid this or take you have a will, and it's just like it's really important that you use this will. So there's no other better direction than yourself. So to activate is to validate, okay? And the more we validate, and the way that validation, what that looks like is not just, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I think you should be excited. Excitement builds character. Excitement gets you going, After the excitement, then I want you to go into the activation mode of validating, of you say thank you. You immediately address your spirit team. Thank you for showing up. I might not know what this means yet, but thank you so much for showing up. You immediately, because as soon as you do that, what happens is they know that they are being heard, and they go to wildfire. It's like buckets of miracles pour down. And then there's take the skeptic. The skeptic's going to come in, which people will actually do this, and they're doing it because this is the other part of you that is trying to invalidate because you feel too open. Okay, so you're going to attract, in a way, skeptical people. Like, I don't have skeptical people in my life at all any longer, and it's only because I've practiced this so much of intuitive connection that it would be like hilarious. Like, if somebody was skeptical, I would probably start laughing. Like, it would be so bonkers to me because it's not even in my consciousness. But let's just say, there you will end up being around a lot of skeptical people in the very beginning, because that's just the nature of energy. And so a skeptical person is going to say, oh no, you're just seeing dolls because a psychic told you to see dolls. And now, of course, you're going to see dolls because you're aware of it. Well, duh, like, of course you're going to. That's energy. The skeptic is trying to separate scientific evidence with phenomena, leaving out our energetic component of what everything is made up of to begin with, because they're in fear. So instead of trying to prove them wrong or right, you're going to completely ignore that and go back to your vulnerability of going into the place of, yeah, they are right. They're right that everything's going to now show up, and I'm going to be super aware of where dolls are, because now the thing is, before you might have seen that doll stuffed in the mats or whatever. And then that client would be like, that's weird. That's kind of creepy. Is it a Chucky doll? You know what I'm saying? So your mind would have went there instead of, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. Now I have an interpretation of what this doll meant. See that? So that's what the psychic is doing. That's what the psychic is offering you. They're offering you, it's not literally a message. They're offering you the connection to your own resources. They're showing you ahead of time what's going to happen in your world, in your universe, so you could understand your power. You could understand, and the power isn't over anything. It's the connection. Power is connection. It's literally your sourcing. It's like you plugging in and turning on. It's your divine umbilical cord, of connection. And so that is what going to a psychic is about, is literally showing you that you are already divinely connected. Like I always say, I can't wait till I never have a job anymore, because that means everybody's tuning into themselves. They don't need me. I would love to be not needed, and that's my biggest job of why I say I do my job is of service. I'm not here for entertainment service. I'm here to help you understand that you're already doing it. You just need trust and faith, just like your spirit team needs trust and faith to validate. You need to validate yourself. Okay, so you are already connecting. This is already happening. This isn't actually mystical at all. You're not misty-eyed anymore. You're awake. You're clearly seeing this, and now it's showing up in the physical. So now what we want to do after we validate is we want to communicate. And so we're using every single thing as an oracle. Everything becomes magically infused, or so it seems. It's almost like the opposite. It's like it's triumphing science in a way, because science is just, it stops at the literal. And so once it gets into the physical realm, it's just like, okay, it thinks it's proven. And so we don't want to stop there. That's a very human, normal thing. And that's why I'm saying, I'm glad that you're all gaga and like excited about it, but there's really an intrinsic amount of, a continual, an infinite amount of work to be using this. I call it the medicine, to be using this. And so now you are understanding and massaging that cord of energy of understanding that you have this divine connection. And this divine connection can help you with all your mundane problems, all the stupid things that happen in our lives that we are confused and we don't know what to do about, You think that, oh, well, my father who's crossed over, let's say somebody's father who's crossed over, like, really, does he really want to listen to my mundane problems? And the answer is yes. What else are they doing? They would love nothing else. Even if you had a terrible relationship, if anything, it's going to be the very opposite, because they're out of body, out of personality. And so now they're coming through, and all they want to do is rectify that healing, in being able to communicate and conversate with you. And that's going to be doing something of maybe not talking about the feeling part of how rotten they were, but to be able to use their energy for a greater good. And that's the divine connection of why it's so important, of why we're here on earth, and when we have a beloved crossed over, because we're able to exercise that back and forth. And now we just became a bigger body. Now we really, truly expanded. Most meditations and stuff, you're going out of your body, you're expanding, you're becoming bigger. You're owning this. You have a beloved. Like every single time, like as soon as my grandmother crossed over, I cried probably for a couple minutes. And then I realized, I told her, I was like, let's get to work. And I brought her in my first session. She literally came in my session, and I'm like, great, you're here to work. I love you so much, but let's really do this, So it's the really activation of that. And that also helped heal my grief and so forth. And so she was a very good conduit of being able to help me, because I've seen her and been with her in the physical. So that's a really good. So when we feel enormous amounts of loss, you might be grieving honestly for the rest of your life. I think I've never put a time limit on grief. I think it's really important to explore that and experience that for how long. I think it's forever. Even as a psychic, I don't think that grief honestly goes away. I think it changes, but I don't think it goes away. And I don't believe it should go away, to be honest. But on the other side of that, you could still be grieving and have that and feel that pain and that loss, even if you know the truth. It doesn't matter. It's important to know that. But while you know that, jumping into the work of saying, let's do the work. I'm going to use sometimes very mundane things of help me find something, or help me clear this headache, that I have, or help me get a better understanding of what's happening. That's a big one I always ask. So when they can't fix something, we're not asking them to fix anything. Okay. That's not their job, nor your job. But because we're not doing the universe's job, but to actually better understand and have tools to help relieve discomfort. And that might be honestly more majority in the mind than in the body. Looks like it's in the body. Rarely it is. It's actually more in the mind. So now your day you go through is connecting of saying thank you. This is why everybody thinks like, oh, Vanessa, you do a lot of gratitude and stuff like this. Sure, I'm very gratitude, but a lot of times gratitude comes in contrast. So a lot of times people do gratitude of saying, "Oh, well, I'm grateful for," meaning like if I had the opposite of that, I would be terrified and horrified. You know what I'm saying? And that's not where my gratitude comes from. My gratitude comes from the giddiness of what you experienced in this miracle of it showing up in form. So that's where my gratitude comes from. My gratitude comes from my spirit team in direct relation of, oh my gosh, I'm being listened to. I'm heard. I'm not alone in this. And it's not like necessarily I have tons of friends on the other side kind of thing. I just have such a massaged, and I used to be a neuromuscular massage therapist. So it's just like coincidence. I think not, a literal massaging of that cord of consciousness. And so all I want to do and all I love to do, it feels I eat, breathe, sleep this, is connect, 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 because it makes every single thing easier. And I have so many podcasts that I want to talk about. Like I want to introduce, and I don't want to like interweave it too much in this because I want this to be direct. But so what you do in this, with this information that you get, however it comes, you communicate, and the way you communicate is you use everything as an oracle. And on top of that, while you're doing that, you validate not just you, but your divine connection by saying thank you, by being in joy, by being giddy, by having your eyes water because you can't believe it. That feeling of I can't believe it, stay in that as much as possible. Make that happen by feeling that. Okay, you're not going to make that happen by trying to orchestrate materialistically. You're going to make that happen by feeling that before it shows up. What that feels like. Everybody has experienced that. Tears in your eyes. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That feeling. That's the title. Thank you. So this is the close. That's the title of this podcast. I can't believe it. That's the beauty of this. And this is the part of where everything's going to show you, oh, you better believe it. Because this is the joy of living. I love you. Bye-bye.